All right, give us just a moment because I see that our facilitator is not present and we might have a little mix up in our breakout room. So let me contact James and let him know. So give us just 1 minute.
Can I just use this opportunity to say hello to Megan Gross? I'm so glad you're back. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for that. That's so kind of you. I'm really happy to be here.
And Aaron's Google James is aware.
Jill, I think if you want to leave the breakout room and go back to the main room, then James can put you in the correct room. And we're just waiting for him to add Michelle. There she is.
Okay, I was traveling rooms, just checking out the scenery and other places. But this looks like the cool kids, so I'm gonna stay here. Sorry about that. Okay, so I know we're a little bit behind schedule. And I just want to check, I think if we could just really quickly maybe go around and do some quick introductions. I know we have a few new faces joining us as commissioners for the first time at this meeting. So, you know, we're excited to meet you. And then what we'll do is, as we've kind of indicated, we're going to go ahead and jump in to reviewing our vision, mission, and values. Hopefully you each have the agenda item in front of you in some manner. I believe Angel will be taking notes for us during this session. He is nodding yes. And hopefully we can move through without too much technical, you know, difficulties. But here we are a year in and we're still learning the ropes here. So with that, I'll start. And then maybe what we can do is I will have my commission team introduce themselves, and then we will start with the commissioners. So Michelle Peralt, I'm the Director of the Administrative Services Division here at the Commission. Erin, why don't you go next?
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Erin Skubal. I am the Director of Certification at the Commission. Kara?
Morning, everyone. I'm Kara Mendoza. I'm an administrator in the Professional Services Division. Angel?
Hello, Angel Lopez, and I'm a policy manager in the Certification Division at the Commission.
Excellent. Why don't we start with Marquita and we'll go from there.
Good morning, all. Marquita Grenoshire, CSU Office of the Chancellor.
Perfect. Anne-Marie?
Good morning, everybody. Anna-Marie Francois. I'm representing the UC.
Excellent. Thank
Terry,
you.
I'll just call on the next person. Terry.
Hi, Terry Jackson, and I'm the designee for the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Megan?
Megan Gross, and I am a teacher representative. I'm an education specialist.
Welcome. And Susan?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Susan Heredia, and I am a school board member in the Natomas Unified School District.
Welcome. Did I miss anybody? I know we have, and welcome to our public. Thank you for joining us and listening along. So before we get started, oh, there's Monica. Monica, I think you just popped in and we just did a quick introduction.
And they just took me to 3. So cool. I'll practice. I just did my introduction to the other one. So yeah, gosh, I'm trying to think. I don't know how long I've been on the commission at this point, but I'm a public member. That's my appointment. And in the last couple of years, I started working at Learning Policy Institute, which of course works on multiple elements of educator quality. I mostly focus on performance assessment for schools, but certainly support, at least in spirit, and in sharing information around our educator supply and educator quality work.
Thank you. Okay. So, excuse me, with that in mind, I think I did already ask, but everybody does have the mission, vision, and values in front of you. I certainly can reread those if you'd like, although I think Mary did a lovely job of doing that in our main room. So unless there's questions, I think what we'll do is we'll just hop right into our discussion, because we're a little bit, we've got about 24-ish minutes before they're going to bring us back. Again, as I mentioned, Angel will be taking notes. Before I get too far in, I'm gonna teach your voice on and ask if there would please be a volunteer that would like to report back out to the group. As mentioned, we just would like somebody to kind of highlight 2 or 3 things that were sort of thematic throughout our discussion. So is there a volunteer? Preferably a commissioner?
Okay, I will.
I was going to give it a second more, Marquita, and then I was just going to call on somebody because, you know.
I was going to recommend rock, paper, scissors, but hey.
Right, right. Okay. All right. So those of you that, you know, are new, for our new commissioners, this may be the first time you've really dug into what our vision, mission, and values currently are. I know for those of you that have been on the commission for a little while, they've obviously been in place, and we've talked about them a little bit with our prior work within the strategic plan. But why don't we just kind of start with that first question, which was, you know, how well do you think that the current mission, vision, and values reflect what the commission's perspective and the agency's role in our work? So whoever wants to start, we can kind of make this an open conversation, and we'll go from there. So might be first. Is there anything that stands out that you think we should highlight first that you know, isn't maybe in line with what we've been doing in recent years?
And are we
Michelle? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. Should I go ahead and share the note taking then, if we're going to just jump right into it?
That would be wonderful. That would be great. Thank you.
Did you want us to take on all 3 or just one? Like vision?
Let's start. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for that. Let's take this in bite-size pieces here. So why don't we just start from our largest to our smallest, and we will start. Let me get up here. Let's start with the vision, which is kind of our top overarching you know, piece related to what we represent. So any comments or thoughts about the current vision? And again, I'm happy to read it if you don't have it in front of you.
I had one thought, and I'll go ahead and read it just in case, okay, since it's so short.
Sure.
All of California's students, preschool through grade 12, are inspired and prepared to achieve their highest potential by well-prepared and exceptionally qualified educators. So I have to say I love the word exceptionally qualified, or that language. That's really cool. But I wonder, my big wondering is, do we need to say early childhood as things are evolving, or keep that to preschool? And that is truly a wonder without having any expertise in kind of what Mary said, what we're actually officially charged with, right? But as we have conversations on early childhood and preparation related to that, do we need to replace the word preschool?
I think that's a great comment.
I have a question related to what Monica just said. Are we wanting to be aspirational here? Because if in fact that is the case, then we should be talking about early childhood through high school. And so I would support that.
Other thoughts?
Building on Marquita, and then I'll shut up, I like how Marquita said high school, because it says grade 12. But if we're also preparing teachers who are supporting extension programs and alternative programs, is grade 12 the appropriate language, or is it graduation? So that thought.
I think those are both great points. I will say that I think, as we have seen obviously in the last several years, the idea of early childhood education has been a hugely hot topic at the state level. I think that's probably a more reflective update to the vernacular, what we use now. We will find as we kind of go through these again that, you know, as is normative, we update the words we use to represent things. And I think that these are all good points. And I do think that they seem to be more inclusive probably and representative of the whole of what we do. But other thoughts, I like both early childhood education, and I like the idea of either graduation or high school. Others?
I wanted to add on to what Monica added, because if we're talking about education specialists, they're credentialed through the age of 22. And so if we limit it to just high school, we're not acknowledging that there's a population of students that we serve until 22 years old.
That is true. And we also do, as Aaron is aware, Aaron Scooble is aware, we obviously do have licensure for adult education that is even beyond the scope of special education. So maybe we don't want to use the word high school. And I don't want to, again, trying to stay to the theme of not overly wordsmithing. I think we can probably put a pin in this, but if something, again, aspirational, I mean, Marquita's word there comes to you, we can certainly add it to the list. So other thoughts?
Michelle, can I make another comment, Michelle? I'm thinking that, and I don't want to wordsmith, I don't have a word for it, but as I read the vision with everything that we've been talking about around trauma and SEL in the state, that the vision, I believe, should resonate a commitment to supporting students from more of an SEL trauma-informed perspective. So inspired and prepared.
What about
it doesn't
the whole
evoke
student?
for me.
Mm-hmm. If we approach it as the whole student, I don't know if that's the right word, but I understand. I think I understand what you're saying, Anne-Marie, which is it goes beyond the academics, right, of a student. We know this. Mm-hmm. So I really, any thoughts or concerns from others? I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm seeing some head nodding. Okay.
Can I just add, Michelle, that I agree with the last comment. It's like we're looking at we're not only looking at the academic, we're looking at the social emotional well-being of the student. So I think possibly using that, adding that wording in there somehow. So it's, we're addressing, I think we're now attempting to go back to educating the whole child.
Yeah, absolutely.
As given the pandemic, I think that brought that to the forefront, the need to look at the whole child.
Right. Absolutely.
Can we go back? I'm wanting to look at the vision again, and I'm on my laptop today, so I don't have multiple screens. So Angel, can you either read it or can
you flip to do you have it up
on
your screen, Angel, that you can share it, or do you want me to? Oh, there you go. You're muted, Angel. There we go. Vision instead of values.
Yeah.
But just a little bit, if you don't mind, Angel.
Go back up.
Yeah, back up to the top. There we go. Perfect.
Does the vision does the vision reflect the conversations that we've been having this past year about our commitment to social justice and equity? And I know it's maybe it fits more in the values, but I'm wanting to raise this issue about whether we want something very bold in the vision as part of the North Star that Maria talked about.
I think that's a good point. And I think the question you're asking, Marquita, is the correct one. As a reminder, we're going from the highest 30,000 foot level with our mission statement down to the mission statement itself, vision statement, down to the mission statement, and then we will go into the values. So I think that is definitely a priority, as we talked about. The commission has discussed this at great length. So we might need to play with whether or not we can fit sort of all of this, the whole child piece related to social emotional, the social justice element, and whether that fits into the vision, or if that's going to make that just too in the weeds, almost too much in that one sentence statement. But I think we want to make sure we note it, and I know Angel's doing that so that we don't lose sight of making sure that fits somewhere strongly, and we can kind of figure out where that might be.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that commitment to educational equity and justice is part of our collective. We should have a vision for educational equity and justice, and it should resonate with it from the mission, values, vision in multiple places. I would not want it to land in one place.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair enough.
Anna Marie said that better than I did. That's exactly what I was thinking, that it begins up here and it is woven throughout. the vision, the mission, the values, the strategic plan.
Perfect. So we just kind of spent about 10 minutes on the vision, and I'm a little bit conscious of our time. So I think these are good points, but I think of what we want to do maybe is now move down to the mission, so we make sure we get time to get through both the mission and the values piece. And Angel, maybe if you could just flip back to that strategic, the item itself. And there is the mission up on the screen again: to ensure integrity, relevance, and high quality in the preparation, certification, and discipline of the educators who serve all of California's diverse students. As you can obviously see, this is based heavily on the way the commission as an agency is set up, and attempts to, address all of the main mandates that we are required to do as an agency. But give me some quick thoughts. What are people thinking on this?
My quick thought, and I don't think we're charged with this, was but just on the pipeline and the supply issue, and the diversity of candidates. Not sure again where that fits in our mandate, but it seemed to be a missing piece in some of this, and it might be a missing piece because that's not our mandate.
Well, and actually, Monica, I will say this, I think, remember, this was done in 2014. Since then, we have been charged with overseeing a huge amount of resources related to the teacher pipeline through the grant programs that we are overseeing. So I do think that there is an element there that is mandated now that maybe didn't exist in 2014. So I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And then I'll just channel Anna Marie again and the comments around equity here.
Yes, excellent. What else? Anything missing? And we've kind of noted some of them when we talked about the vision, so we'll make sure we capture those here too. But anything specific to the mission? I'm sorry, in the vision, but anything specific to the mission?
I'm wondering if post-COVID, if there needs to be along the same lines of the pipeline, like how we recruit teachers to, how do we recruit people to a profession that is challenging in a good year, and just like how, how are we rebuilding the value of educators that existed last March, that this March doesn't look the same?
Very fair point.
Can I add to what Megan just said? Somebody recently, and I'll attribute it to the person, Alicia Smith-Arriaga, formerly of Ed Trust West, talked about restorative restart. When we think about the new place we're placing our candidates, how do we think about that? I love that term.
That's good. Others?
It's just a minor point, but I'm wondering the three key phrases in the mission: integrity, relevance, and high quality. Does the order of those terms matter given our current context? So I've been thinking a lot about relevance lately, in that you can't have high quality or integrity in implementation unless you first think about how relevant this body is, what the body does for the young people in the state of California and the educators that serve them. So it's just a minor thing for us to always be thinking about when we put these things out. Is there an order of operation?
That is a great point.
But what do you think, Anna Marie? Do you think there is an order? Would you recommend an order?
I think, as I said, my bias right now is that I think one of the reasons why we don't roll out the programs that have integrity around educational justice and high quality is because we're planning programs that aren't relevant. So I'm always putting relevance at the forefront. And I think as a commission, we have to decide what our collective order of operation is. But I just want to acknowledge that I'm biased around relevance right now.
It's good.
Let me ask a quick question back to you, Anna Marie, and related to your comment earlier about the social justice element. In our mission, would mention at the very end here, who serve all of California's diverse students. Is that going to capture what we're talking about? I'm not sure it does. I'm just thinking about, as you were just talking about, the order of these first three words of integrity, relevance, and high quality. Perhaps we need to think about putting something in there at that forefront that talks to the idea of social justice and ensuring that, again, we're serving the whole student. Okay, what else? If not, I'll move us down to the last piece, which are our values, which there's obviously a little bit longer list. So if Angel, you'll flip us just to the next page on the agenda item, we can take a quick glance at those 5 values. These are the current ones that we have as part of our strategic plan now in place. So I'm going to give you, rather than read them all out loud, I'll just give you a moment again to skim through them. And then I'll just say that when you're ready, we can open up the floor to some thoughts and conversation around these. And again, this is that next layer down, getting a little bit more detailed about what we as an agency are working towards.
I just wanted to interject one quick note as I'm typing things. If my summary of the words, I'm trying to get the core thoughts. If you're like, I would word that differently, please just say so. I will just fix it as you ask.
Thanks, Angel. I think my comments.
Go ahead, Monica.
No, go ahead. I've had the floor, please, Susan.
So I think what's missing is, again, reflecting on what we've been talking about this past year, an explicit focus on equity, excellence, social justice, closing opportunity gaps. Whatever terms we as a commission agree on, those are our core values, which again drive the work that we do and drive how we support and accredit our educator preparation programs.
Yeah, I support exactly what Marquita says. I think everything we've said needs to fit in here. And I think, again, going back to like the diversity of the candidates and diversity on the broadest sense, right? I mean, we're talking about LBGT, we're talking about people of color, we're talking about men. So I feel like this is a good place in our values to say that we really value a diverse workforce and be stronger about that. That goes beyond the inclusiveness and diversity in terms of programs and practices, but go about the pipeline and our workforce at large.
I really agree with Monica or Commissioner Martinez about that. And that I think one of the reasons I was stuck, Michelle, with the question posed earlier is that the thing that misses in our conversations around diversity is diversity can be rather watered down to essentializing like race and the things we normally think about. And I think this might be an opportunity for us to call out diversity in a way of like valuing folks' lived experiences, that the diversity is within lived experience rather than general categories around race, ethnicity, religion, that kind of thing. I don't know how to phrase it, but you said this was not a wordsmithing session, so I'm just going to put out the
I think that's good. And actually, Anne-Marie, I appreciate that comment. I think that's why I asked the question in our mission. It felt to me like we used the word diverse in our mission to sort of put it out there, and it was more of that what I would say watered down version, right? It may not fit with the way we think about that now. The other thing I might put in front of the group to think about, and this is based off the comment earlier about our role in the educator pipeline, right? And that includes the diversity element at all of its layers. I'm wondering if we need something there, something around that in this values list, because, part of ensuring, and I'll go back to what we hear all the time, ensuring that the educator in front of the students reflects the population of students, their values, who their life experiences align, we know we're not doing well. And I think that the commission plays a role in that. So I'm wondering if we need to capture some of that as part of the supportive nature we need to play in infusing the pipeline. So don't know what people think about that, if you like that idea, if you have a different thought, but throwing it out there.
I think that's what's missing as I read this, is that we're striving to do these things, but yet we don't talk about the attributes of the people who come to the table to teach our kids. We don't talk about their knowledge, their disposition, and the ability to relate to and understand children who are different than themselves. So, you know, that attitude, that disposition, the knowledge, I think those play critical roles in terms of who's in front of children. And yeah.
And I want to,
Angel, can I just ask you to, I know you're just typing furiously. Can you just include explicit focus on DEI?
Mhm.
Thank
And then Terry, I think you had a comment too.
yeah, I just, you know, I wanted to piggyback because I heard students, which is at the core of the work, everybody's work. But I think back it up, and what is the core of the commission is to make sure that that the people that are in front of the students, as you say, they examine their, you know, what they're bringing to the table and everything like that. And I think all the work is really about self-reflection and, you know, are they the fit? Are they the people that need to be in front of our students, so to speak? And that really does get down to, you know, paying close attention to diversity and inclusion and all of that. So, and I truly believe the commission has a role in that. From what we're hearing from stakeholders and everything about barriers and who gets into the profession, who's having, you know, who's not able to get into the profession or having a hard time getting in the profession, and maybe we're leaving behind the very people that we want in the profession in front of our students. So
It's really interesting. As I'm listening to you all speak, you know, I heard in the very early part of the conversation talk about the whole child, and it's making me think, as you're talking now, about the whole educator. And so are we looking at the whole of the educator and who they are and what they bring, and how they experience their preparation and their you know, relationship with the student. So it's really interesting to hear you all talk about this. This is really helpful.
I will say, you know, this is another thing I know we talk about a lot, and I you know, I know we hear this in the classroom, right? Which is that we have to meet our children, we have to meet our students where they're at, right? And gosh knows this year they're going to be everywhere this upcoming year. But I think, to Aaron Scubel's point, we also have to meet our educators or our potential educators where they're at. And then that could look different depending on, you know, what their background is, depending on the community they're coming from. And so we do play a role in that. I think the commission does absolutely play a role, particularly in the last couple of years, as we have tried to provide resources that are diverse to encourage people into the pipeline. So we've just about a minute and a half left. So any last thoughts? I want to make sure we capture everything, and we're going to come back together for the second breakout where we'll get to dig a little bit more into the details. So we'll have some more time.
Do we want to do a quick summary of what our takeaways are from this, so that whoever is reaching out, whoever's reporting out for us, will have some points to talk about?
Thank you, Erin. That was going to be my next question. Marquita, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I know I want to give Anna Marie a chance because she was going to comment. I'm making notes. We'll see if they reflect our conversation.
Perfect.
I just want to support Commissioner, I'm going to say this inappropriately, and I'm sorry, Heredia? Is that how you say it?
The H is silent. Yes, thank you.
About the importance of knowledge, skills, and dispositions, because I think the dispositions towards equity is what moves us from thinking about educating as solely a technical endeavor, and it helps us to think about the more cultural dimensions of education for those programs that are a little bit more progressive, thinking about education, teacher education and other preparation as more political in nature. I think that is what we need to open up the conversation about. And it's what I've heard being resonated over and over again during the commission meeting. So I just really wanted to support the importance of including dispositions throughout this document.
And if I could just
we got 2 more minutes. We got 2 more minutes added to us, so we have a little bit more time. Okay. So go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, no, thank you for the comments around the disposition. I would also add, and I don't think Mary's on with us any longer, but, you know, I met Mary and through the work I was doing with Bechtel, all the next gen stuff. That's how I met Marquita. And do we need to have some more space about preparing students for the 21st century? So around the higher order thinking, around some of this application of knowledge and critical thinking and problem solving, do we need to have more about that skill set, so to speak? And then I also wondered if we needed to be stronger about our belief in all students' ability to learn and taking students where they are and accelerating their learning. And so the expectations that go along with that. And I think it was just something somebody mentioned about the students are going to be all over the place. And so what is our expectation? And how do we support and honor and state explicitly about the belief that all students can learn and that we work within the diversity, well, really in terms of the varied learning places they're at and accelerate their learning.
Yep.
Monica, thank you for that last comment in particular, because I think this past year we've moved away from the idea of inclusive education. And it goes back to, where is she? Oh, where's our teacher representative?
Megan, yeah.
Megan's perspective on, we're talking about, students with disabilities as well as we think about from early childhood through 22. So I really appreciate the all students, the each and every learner, and what do they need.
Yep.
And just to go back to preparation, and working through the program, we want educators that can distinguish assets that students are going to bring to the classroom. I think that we're starting to make strides in that, but that needs to be really strong. And I think that's commission work. That's really making sure that we have candidates that really truly understand that assets are being brought to the classroom.
And I would argue on that point that the way you do that is to ensure that you have educators who have completed their preparation pathway through different avenues. It's not all just that technical box checking of the preparation, because when you have educators who have only achieved their preparation through this single focused technical pathway, then they are really singularly minded that learning occurs only in this primary way. And I think to your point, Terry, that's really necessary to have these alternative pathways to preparation.
And
so we're going to lose all of you in 10 seconds.
I was just going to put a plug in for the Learning to Teach continuum. Preparation in the preparator programs plus induction plus our
And we're back. And I made it to the right room this time without taking a tour first. So, Marquita, thank you so much for reporting back. We really, really appreciate that. Before we kind of dig in, a couple of just sort of norms that maybe we should talk through. Does everybody need a quick health break? I'm seeing some nods. Okay, so it's 10:26. Could we kind of keep it to maybe 5-ish or so minutes, just because I think we're going to get into some conversations. Okay, so turn off camera, turn off your audio, and we'll come back about 10:31-ish, 10:32-ish, and then we'll dig in. Okay. I think I have us all back. So as was mentioned in the large group, we have kind of 3 different elements that we need to go through. They start with our multi-year goals, which are actually the shortest of the list of things. And what we'd like to do is give you an opportunity to read through each of them, give you 3 or 4 minutes, and then we will come back and discuss. I would like to propose that we do our reading as we go. It might just help to not jumble them all together in the brain. So what I would say is, does everybody have the multi-year goals in front of you? Again, just a reminder, these are based on some of our mandated requirements within statute, as well as any of our regulation type of guidance work. So does everybody have them, or would you like Angel to put them up on the screen? What would you prefer?
Could Angel put it up on the screen,
Of
please?
course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know what page they are in the item by chance?
They are, give me a second. I'm flipping through several different things here. They are on page 3, Angel, or 4, it looks like. So we just keep going down. Yep, past that one, right there. Multi-year goals. So the other thing is in the PowerPoint, this one has a little bit more depth of information for each of them. And in the PowerPoint, we kind of give you a little quicker hit. So, but we'll give about 4 minutes and we'll come back and talk about these at about 10:30. Okay, I lied. I'm going to move us along just a little bit more quickly because I realize we have about 34 minutes left in our breakout. And this is one of 3 things that we'll need to dig into. So what I'd like to do is open up the conversation, try to see if we can't get some feedback in the next 7 or 8 minutes, and then we'll kind of move along so we allow for time to capture. Before, again, Angel will be taking notes. Before I get too much further, thank you, Marquita, for presenting the first time. Do I have a volunteer that will present our next one? Now, the nice thing is we're group 3, so we might go last, but is there another commissioner that's willing to kind of be our person that talks back out to the full group?
I think there's something to be said about consistency across our reporting back. And so I would like to nominate Marquita.
Oh, no way, dear friend.
Well, what I will say is perhaps if maybe we could ask either you, Anna Marie, or Monica, just because then we're not picking, or Terry. That way, maybe we give our new commissioners a little bit of a pass because I think they're still getting themselves embedded in the work. So maybe Anna Marie, Terry, or Monica. Monica, you unmuted. So I'm gonna.
I was nominating Anna Marie.
Oh, okay. Well,
Anna Marie is staying muted.
Okay.
Monica,
do you mind doing it for us?
Are we doing all the goals? Am I reporting out on all 4 goals, just this one?
You're just going to give a little bit of a highlight, again, 3 to 5 on each of the sections that we're going to talk about. And again, you don't have to repeat anything the other groups will have said. So we'll be there to help you. Don't worry. It'll be okay. All right. Thank you, Monica. Really appreciate it. Okay. So back to the overall goals are kind of our multi-year goals. Again, these were established in 2014. Some of them may still be current. Some of them you might look at and go, gosh, you know, we're doing other work that I think is a higher priority. So I don't want to go line by line because we don't have time. So what I'd like to do is just ask overall some feedback. Kara, do you have a comment? No. Oh, she's shaking.
No, I was just going to tell Angel because the questions are at the top. So never mind. Go ahead. We're talking, sorry.
Okay, so overall thoughts in any of the overall categories, which are educator quality, program quality and accountability, communications engagement, and operational effectiveness. Just give me some quick hits.
One thing that jumped out at me under educator quality, when you talk about assessment, that the commission has invested an awful lot in performance assessments, and I wonder if we should call that out. And I also wonder about this term consistent educator assessment, that the assessments might be authentic and meaningful rather than authentic and consistent. I don't actually know what consistent means in this context. That's the thing.
I think that's a great point. Very good point. And performance assessments did not exist when this was last established, when we had the strategic plan implemented. So great point. What else? What about the diversity piece? Oh, go ahead, Megan.
Well, so along that line, Michelle, so what jumps out at me is that we're missing a lot of language around equity and inclusion and social justice. But I wanted to come back to that idea that we had last time about the whole educator, and how are we surveying educators and preparation students about their knowledge and skills and dispositions? Like, how are we kind of tracking some of that information? Because I think especially those dispositions, like I would love to see some data on what is happening like right now, and then where are we 5 years from now, in really engaging in these critical conversations in our classrooms and school communities. So I would like
Those
to
are both really good points. And I think that they could probably fall both under educator quality as well as program quality, right? There are elements and roles in both of those places that probably need to address this. Megan, you brought up a good point about data. The commission is doing a lot of work in data now, both across partnerships with other state agencies, but also within internally that we've been able to gather as we've created some of these other constructs. And I'm not sure we capture that. So that's both really, really good points. Other thoughts?
Just speaking about data, and I don't know in what section, but somewhere I read that, I forget what the word was, but in terms of continuous improvement, is it regular assessment? And what does that mean? I forget what the word was instead, but if we're talking about continuous improvement models, it needs to be regular and sustained over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a great
very
point.
Good.
And I also think when we think about data, when we talk about the current trends in research and learning theory, that we should surface and illuminate the importance of research and call out adult learning theory, because I think sometimes when people read this, we think about K-12 kids, and there's a whole body of research around adult learning theory that we want folks to focus on. And also in terms of tracking, I don't know about tracking current trends in research, but what do we do with it once we track it? This is not an action-oriented statement.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And once we've gotten to those goals, we do want to think about that action orientation to them, because they will feed the tasks that then the staff, work through over the 3 to 5 years. So, and to that point, do these make sense in a 3 to 5 year context? Again, as we get to goals, we want to be updating these a little bit more frequently than our overall vision and mission and values. So.
I want to go back to the idea of assessment.
Mm-hmm.
There's such controversy around assessment. So I think we need to be really mindful of what do we mean when we talk about assessment? How does the assessment that instruments that we're using, how is that relevant to our mission of equity and social justice and access? We need to look at I kind of like the word when we talk about culturally relevant pedagogy, it's almost like we need relevant assessment or culturally appropriate assessment, but we need to think of rethink what we mean about that.
Yep, good. I'm going to kind of push us along. Any other I know I'm pushing us quickly, but we have 2 other sections and we have to do some reading and dialogue. So any other things you think that we're absolutely missing, or even things that are currently in there that you're like, they've got to go? Okay.
Well, I guess I'll add, are we talking, I mean, we can include, I think my big takeaway was, where is this about kind of advancing the field or just advancing the profession as kind of a theme that I see here. It says play leader. Yeah, that's all just in there.
Okay.
I also think that in terms of communication and engagement, when we talk about contributing to the public discourse, that we probably ought to have some conversations about what that means, because public discourse includes, in my view, includes some advocacy for the things that you believe in. And I don't know, I think that as a state body that we have some restrictions to that, but I also think there are opportunities for us to speak into the same kinds of challenges or the same kinds of issues that Susan mentioned in a more loudly and more directly than what we do right now. I think that our policy cannot be the only way that we engage in the public discourse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair point. Okay. We're going to dig. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as we're talking about our, on this train of thought, and we're thinking of our 3 to 5 year goals, do we want to propose a goal related to assessment and examinations, and where the maybe, where do we want to go with that? Because we do want to have some solid 3 to 5 year goals, that possibly address that. What are we thinking?
Okay, I'm going to move us. We only have 24 minutes. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Building on, this notion of assessments being meaningful. And when I say meaningful, I'm really thinking about performance assessments. So I'm kind of looking at Monica to help inform, like, what's her knowledge around performance assessment that might be useful to them. But in terms of the standardized testing that candidates have to take, I'm not convinced, and I don't know the research around it, that those are any indicators of being a successful teacher. So for me, we've done some movement as a result of COVID to relook at local assessments that would test for some of the same things, or looking at transcripts. Like, is there some flexibility there that we can afford candidates that still, that better measures their readiness and their effectiveness beyond what the high stakes standardized testing is doing, and would give local context a little bit more flexibility that's more relevant to the context than what a standardized test would give.
And
in this area.
Support that.
And pending legislation, hopefully this year, is going to help reframe how we're assessing our candidates, right?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. It's very timely. I think these conversations are very timely, and as we start to see some of this play out in the next several months, that we will want to reflect that right here in our 3 to 5 year goals, because that will come with different supports than what we've done in the past to support candidates around exams and that sort of thing. So, okay, I'm gonna move this. Go ahead, Monica.
Well, I would say assessment, we have to be able to connect it to the previous conversation around knowledge and dispositions and skills.
Yep.
And to Anne-Marie's point, it's really about demonstrating and applying their knowledge and their skills and their dispositions versus just trying to restate it or memorize or recall it from a test.
Yep.
Or for a test.
Okay. The next piece actually kind of builds on this conversation. So we'll have some time to continue to revisit, but I want to make sure you have a chance to look at it and to help it cultivate some more thoughts in your mind. What we're going to I'm going to give you about 4 minutes again to read through. It's more going to be a skim. I apologize because of the length. The Appendix B that was in your agenda item. Now, there was, as Mary mentioned, an Appendix B was updated. And we did an insert. It was a very last minute, so our apologies. But Angel has it here up on the screen. He's going to kind of move through it probably at a pace he's going to estimate you're going to be at. But please feel free to pull it up as well on your own web browser. This is, we tried to take the pieces that are already within the goal areas and that were reflective of the responses we got to the survey out to the field last summer, and provide some framework for you. Based on sort of the trending responses, we've put in whether it's clear in our mandate as an agency, whether it's something that what we're calling sort of adjacent to our mandate, meaning, we could probably work on it, but it's not an explicit, you must get it done. And then something that is outside our mandate. In other words, it's really probably, it's something we might want to think about, but it's not something without legislative change we could do. And then we also, for those that are either in the mandate or kind of adjacent to it, we tried to give you an idea of what work is already being done in that area, just so it kind of helps you capture what we do day in and day out. So let me give you guys a few minutes to scroll through this. And then we'll come back and revisit those same questions about what is resonating with you, what you think needs to be definitely added into the goals, what you think is not something you think the agency needs to spend time working through. Okay. So we'll come back in about, I'm going to give you about three minutes or so, just so we can have time to talk.
Michelle, can you remind me again what adjacent means? What's the definition?
So adjacent to the mandate, it means that it's not clear. It's either silent, but we do believe that there is work that we, either do as an agency or partner with. So for example, study the 4-year integrated programs, how they're doing. As you would know, Marquita, that really lands in your lane as an IHE, but we might partner with you to talk about how we can help improve or their pieces. So that's adjacent means, you have work, but it doesn't have to be absolutely done. I also should mention that operational, I forgot that we put that in there. This really just indicates that it's something at a staff level. We would do it at an operational level. It might be, some of the things is, improve the website, update that. That would be done as more of a normative. So it's not really even addressed in the mandate and doesn't make sense to do so. So I am going to kind of open up the conversation. I know this is really, really terribly long. Again, I don't want us to go line through line because I just don't think we'll get to it. And so I'd rather spend the time asking you guys what's resonating with you. What do you think as you kind of scrolled through these very quickly? I know that you think absolutely we need to make sure we add to the list of things that we explore as we update the multi-year goals. Again, 3 to 5 years is the reminder on that. So thoughts? Anybody want to kick us off?
So, something that jumped out at me reflects something that Kara said in our last session, and that is the learning to teach continuum. And given where we are now in having candidates who have themselves suffered learning loss, how does this relate to what's happening in induction, and where is that? I know the commissioners have talked about that, but again, I don't see it, and I think it's absolutely critical that we do some real explicit work in this area.
I want to build on that comment with Marquita about the induction. I think there needs to be, we need to look at, what does induction look like? Because you can speak to beginning teachers from different school districts, for example, who go through different induction programs, and it could vary. Sometimes I get the sense that there's not a consistency. So as I'm thinking about that, I mean, if that's one of the things I want to focus on, I think we need to know more about it, and in order to ask the questions, is this relevant to our mission and our vision?
And how has, if I just might, and then I'll stop, and how has it changed, or how must it change for these new cohorts of students that are graduating right now?
Yeah, exactly.
These are very good points. And really fit nicely within the 3 to 5 years. We know that the flexibilities that we provided, which were critical, put a lot of pressure onto the induction side to support these candidates. And we have given them 3 to 5 years to clear their credential. So this will be, with some of the flexibilities being accomplished within the induction frame. So I think very timely, very, very timely.
I have a concern, a question, not a concern, but a question related to this topic. If we've expanded induction as a result of this for 3 to 5 years, does that mean as a beginning teacher, I'm paying for induction for 3 to 5 years of my teaching career?
No, let me clarify. What we have done, because of obviously the pandemic, is we shifted. We still allowed folks to get their certification and their credential without meeting some of the exam requirements and some of the other things that they would have normally have done under their program. That has shifted some of the supports for them being able to be successful at completing those to the induction side. It's not necessarily going to have an impact, at least this is my understanding, on the length of induction hasn't increased time-wise, nor has the cost factors should remain the same. If your district doesn't currently charge or actually pays for it, that should still remain the same. It just means there's a shift in the supports, right? And it goes to Marquita and Susan's comment about making sure that there is some consistency across induction programs, that they have the resources to know how to support these candidates who typically might have been getting these kinds of supports in programs. Please feel free. That's my 2 cents, but I move to the experts to help clarify.
And along that point, to be explicit about the relationship between the EPP and the district
Yes.
that the candidate finds themselves in.
Very good point. Very good point, Marquita. All right. Other thoughts?
Well, I think what I wonder is what our role might be in kind of these high need teachers, like for STEM, for special ed, for, like when I think STEM, I think multiple subjects in science and math. And so, we have the data that shows us, the percentage of teachers that we're producing with regard to multiple subjects, single subject, and sorry, I meant single subject for math and science, and ELL teachers. So what do we want to do, or can we address anything around high need or priority areas? And so it's kind of like the paraprofessional grant program, right? It helps us really kind of diversify our candidates. And what are other grants or initiatives that we have to get to high priority, and then again, still with recruiting a more diverse pipeline. So there's the whole issue still around the recruitment and retention. And so when I think about communication that came up earlier, again, how are we kind of promoting and advancing the field of teaching as a commission? So that was lots of different things.
All very, very good, though. Very timely. And definitely, Monica, I think something that we, again, play a role in, right, with other partners to figure out ways that we can, help diversify through the resources that have been provided to the grant programs. And the state has obviously played a deep role in making sure that those grants are addressing and recruiting, right? That recruitment and retention overall, right? What is our role, and how do we coordinate that role with others?
I really appreciate thinking about high needs, Commissioner Martinez, in terms of discipline, but also in terms of representation and diversity, because both of those things are high need. And when they come together, that's like the sweet spot, right? But I do think, as I think in 3 to 5 years from the commission, that we have the paraprofessional programs and then the pilot programs around community college, that if we're serious about diversity, we've got to think more creatively about community college pipelines into the profession. And I'd like to see that as somewhere reflected in a strategic plan.
Very good. I'm going to just ask a quick question here. It's more of a housekeeping question. We do have about 10 minutes. We do have another section that's related to the 2021 priority goals that Mary Vixie Sandy presented at our last commission meeting. I'm going to ask the group, would you like to move on and try to dig through those, or would you prefer to instead set those aside and spend a little bit deeper time and thought into the goal areas? Any preference? I don't want to squeeze our time, so. Okay, well, let's see if there's a few other thoughts here, and if there's not, and if we feel like we have framed sort of the biggest hits related to the goal areas, then we can go ahead and give some time to this priority. So any other thoughts related to this? I'm getting no's. Oh, you guys are so efficient.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Please do.
And I think this what I'm going to say probably should have been, I should have probably offered it sooner, but I was just reminded here of this, is that, just the preparation of teachers. We really focused on the kids, but we didn't focus on families and the community. And,
great point.
There's this great book, I think it's called Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me, kind of, and I think that sort of speaks to what we're trying to get at, is that candidates just, it's not limited to the classroom, but you really have to be sort of like an ethnographer and understand the community in order to address what you're teaching in the classroom and make it relevant.
Yeah, excellent. And that component of family engagement is something, and Susan, I know you're new, we just did a short piece for the commission at the previous meeting, but it's something that I think is definitely rising to a priority level that the commission as a whole and staff are trying to figure out the role we play within. So other thoughts and considerations? Otherwise, we can absolutely spend a little bit of time talking about the 2021 priorities. Give you a moment to look at those. Okay. All right, so those are also in the updated agenda insert that was given to you and is posted. And I know Angel's going to throw it up here on the screen. I think you have to go up, Angel. Thank you. We only have about 8 minutes, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to just sort of dig through these. Again, for those of you that are new, this might be new. For those of you who aren't, this was presented by Mary at the last meeting. And then we'll just kind of do some quick hits on if we've missed anything for this year's priorities. Hi, Mary.
Hello, everyone. Let me just ask, we're thinking about, since we lost a little bit of time today, we're wondering if going to 11:30 would be useful for this group. I can check with the other groups as well to see. We're thinking about doing that. I just want to poll you on what's the sense. Do you need more time?
We could probably use closer to about 15 minutes or so, Mary, but I'll look at the group if you guys want to revisit back into the other sections at all. No, probably about 15 minutes would be better for us, Mary, instead of the 7 that are left.
Okay, so it's 11:05 now. We'll go to
like 11:20.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be really great.
And Michelle, because this is such a big topic and I really accidentally unmuted myself, can we make sure we go through and prioritize the 3 to 5 things we want to say as a team?
Absolutely. We will do that for you, Monica. Monica got voluntold, Mary, to present. Okay, let me give you guys about 3 to 4 minutes though, then, since we have a little bit more time now, which is great, to skim through the 2021 initiatives and milestones. A reminder, these are for this year, and we update these annually, and we present at the end of each year about what we have accomplished within them. So I'll give you a moment to do that, and then we'll come back and have a conversation. Do folks need a few more minutes, or are you feeling good? All right. Okay, so just like the last 2 pieces as we went through, we'll not go line by line, but we'll just kind of talk overall about what these goals and initiatives and milestones for this year are capturing. I will say this at the top of it, I'm at least feeling better because as I'm looking at these based on the conversations we had in the first breakout and then the first part of this breakout, it looks like we're prioritizing at least some of those things that this group has indicated need to be a priority, right? So, but that being said, thoughts, do these make sense? We have these broad categories. The first 2, which are both the DEI piece as well as the early childhood education, are not within a goal. And that's because they sort of sit outside of the current structure. But we know that those are very critical and important. So, give me sort of your overarching understanding that we are digging down to the lowest level now, which is the milestones for the year versus that 3 to 5 year picture. Understanding some of them may bleed over.
Michelle, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, Marquita. If they're not a goal, what are we calling them? And how do we measure them?
So, and I'm going to take that in 2 different questions to answer, Marquita. You know, I think it's fair to say that we know that we do some work that fall outside of the goals because our multi-year goals, again, were established in 2014. We know we're in the process of updating them. So some of these are going to fall outside of that because we didn't capture them. So they may not just fall within a goal, but they are still considered tasks or work that we know are priorities that need to be done. I think your question about whether we've met the milestone or met the work and how do we capture that is a second question. And so we should be thinking about that. As we are writing these, some of them we can look at and check the box, right? At the end of the year, we finished it. Some of them are going to a little bit be harder to capture. So that's maybe I would like to pose that back to the group. Do you feel like any of these, as the way we have laid them out, are somewhat problematic to be able to understand that we've made measurable, progress in them? And again, are we missing some, or do they need to be captured in a different way?
I'm gonna gently push back. I still,
sure, absolutely.
I understand when I think about strategic planning.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your goals are what you do, and you measure them. And so if we take diversity, equity, inclusion, what have we done, and why isn't that a goal for this year? And how do we assess ourselves?
Can I jump in on this one?
Please, Mary, go ahead.
Because this essentially, this document we're looking at, that is the 2021 initiatives and milestones. This is something, according to your policy manual, I report to you at the beginning, at the first meeting of every year, and tell you this is the work above and beyond all our processing of credentials and all of that. This above and beyond that, the initiatives that we have in motion, these are the milestones we plan to hit, and these are the new initiatives that are up and coming up, right? And then at the end of the year, I report to you progress that the staff has made on all of these things, and that's the subject of my evaluation. So with respect to these things, my expectation as the author of this document is that I'm going to be able to show you progress as defined on all of these. So the expectation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we proposed in February when we presented this to commissioners that we will examine and define the commission's role this year in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's part of what, so go ahead, I'm sorry, please.
Mary, so I heard you say this is what we evaluate you on. So, but isn't this also the work of the commission?
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is, absolutely. But you basically, we agree that these are the priorities, and I am the agent of the commission to ensure that we advance your agenda. All right, all of these things tie one way or another to the strategic plan. Diversity, equity, and inclusion got pulled out I pulled it out of the list and put it at the top of the list, knowing based on all the conversations we were having last year, our environmental scan, the context we were in, that this is a very high priority for commissioners, and it needed to stand outside of the, where a couple lines down, you see goal 1, educator quality. That's a strategic plan, goal 1, where we talk about educator quality. These are the things we'll do with performance assessment this year. These are the things we'll do with testing, credentialing, grants, and et cetera. So those are specific things under goal 1 we'll do. But for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we pulled it out, and I've committed to you, partly because I think you've expected it as a commission of me and the staff, that we will support the commission's work in defining its role in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion this year. So what we're doing in strategic planning partly is getting the sense of our landscape and how, what is our work and how do we move forward. But you should expect that there will be moments during one of the next 4 meetings that we have after this one, where we dig in on this question of what lanes do we have and how are we moving forward in these lanes. And you as commissioners will have the opportunity to shape, direct, and inform that. So that's how this document works. We offered it to you as one of your source documents for this session because it works as a part of the structure of a strategic plan, right? You have a vision, you have a mission, you have values, you have multi-year goals that are tied to your mission. Here's what we're going to accomplish within that framework this year and what we're up to, right? So I'm not sure if this is helping to locate this work for you, but
it just raises in me, I don't know if this is how I'm feeling, is like you have these 4 goal areas and then you have these 2 initiatives, so to speak, at the top, diversity, equity, inclusion, and early childhood education that are standing outside, and maybe distinguishing why they're standing outside of your 4 goals. If you want to go ahead and put in bold that these are ongoing priorities or something that doesn't make it look like it's just an add-on or just an afterthought of your 4 goal areas. That's how I'm looking at it. So
I think that's really important perspective. And if you don't mind me just jumping in with one more sentence about this, I see both of these issues as not outside the 4 goals, but as encompassing all of them. All right, the work we do to define our role in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion will comb through performance assessments, testing, credentialing, program quality, accountability, accreditation, communication with the field. It is an overarching sort of lens through which we want to look at all of the work. I think that's really where the commission is coming from. That certainly is where what I recommend the commission, continue to pursue. That's how I'm hearing you as commissioners. Similarly with early childhood education, the work we're doing right now in early childhood around, piloting a program review and accreditation process for a system and a permit that has never been subject to standards or accreditation. That fits right in goal 2 and in goal 1, right? Building a performance assessment for the child development permit fits right inside goal 1 and goal 2. So these are cross goal areas in the way they're formed. So there's nothing about this that is static, but that's how I'm interpreting, or had intended to interpret it with commissioners in setting these before you.
Mary, I think I hear you. But we somehow have to instantiate these two things so we don't lose them. And in one of our previous groups, we talked about diversity, equity, inclusion right at the top, all the way threaded through. And I don't see it in the goal statements because, of course, these goals from in December. So somehow, what you're hearing, I think, from the colleagues on my screen here is we've got to make it clear how these two things relate to the goals. And it's still not clear to me.
We'll take that. I'm glad we're capturing that in the notes. We agree.
So we have about 10 minutes, and I want to be mindful that Monica would like us to help kind of capture, right, rightfully so, what we're going to report out on. So I want to at least leave a couple of minutes, 3 minutes at the end. So we do have about 10 minutes or so. What else? We'll definitely take up the diversity, equity, inclusion in the early childhood piece and figure out how that gets woven. There could actually also be, as we start through this process, some of those other topical areas or issues that also may be multi-goal, and we'll kind of look at those. But as it relates to the other elements, we talk about performance assessment, we talk about the grants and the funded programs, which I know were big pieces that we discussed both in the previous breakout and now in this one. What are your other thoughts? Are there other pieces you think we needed to have captured? Are there things within this list that you think we want to just note for higher prioritization? Questions? Angel has a question.
No, I have to pause. Something went wrong with the shared doc. It gave me an error and I've tried to reload. So I'm going to quickly switch over to just a regular Word document.
Absolutely.
But I do want to share it as well as we get those last bits, because I think that'll be useful for speaking later. So 1 second.
While he's doing that, we'll let you think a little further and gather your thoughts too. All right. You ready for us, Angel?
Let's give it a try.
Okay, we're going to give it a try. All right, other thoughts? Other things you'd like to see?
I maybe just be a little ignorant in this area, but I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud anyway. And the goal around performance assessment is one of the initiatives, priorities, milestone. We've been doing this for a little while now, around research evidence that it actually matters.
So the data capture, is that what you're kind of saying, Anne Marie, back to the earlier conversation about how we go back and revisit, capture the data so we can see impact? Is that kind of what you're saying?
And I want to impact beyond numbers, impact meaning the stories of quality,
gotcha.
Meaning the stories of a sense of self-efficacy amongst the teachers who take do we compare NTPA data with their teacher performance assessments that they, 3 years out. Like, sure. I guess it's time for us to prioritize kind of this impact data beyond the numbers.
That's a great point. And that goes to some of the conversations we were talking about later, which is once they've left the program and they are now employed, what supports are happening there? What do we see? And I think it goes back to Marquita's earlier comment about continual program improvement, right? And having that information about how well they do once they're in the classroom in a variety of ways, right? To help understand whether we're meeting the mark both with programs and in this case, obviously performance assessments is one of those. Other thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
I'm sorry, just one more point about that.
Go right ahead.
To that is how is the ADS data being used? Like I deal with the ADS data at UCLA all the time, and I'm not really quite sure what the impact of it is.
those of us that are new, for you commissioners that are new, the ADS is our accreditation data system. It's the system that the programs utilize to put in on an annual basis information related to what's happening within their program. So just, I know we use acronyms a lot, so please feel free to ask. Great point. Other thoughts?
Yes, building on, on Anna Maria's comments, I'd like to see, you have this data about the progress of teacher performance, but I'd like to see that correlated with the research that talks about how some of these performance assessments they're not a good indicator of how well a teacher will do in the classroom. I think that's important that we look at that data and that research, and then compare to what we're doing.
Good point. We know assessments and exams are a big issue, topical area that we're digging into, right? So very timely. Any other last thoughts? Because again, I'm sensitive to the fact that we want to make sure we can try to come up with our 3 to 5 bullets for Monica to report out on. Okay. We have about 5 minutes. So let's, Monica, would it be helpful? We can have Angel type them up, or it might be good if you also kind of jot them down, just because we're having a little bit of technical, and I don't want you to be without something in front of you when we go to report out.
Yeah, I think, so Angel, I don't know if you could share the other one too, but I feel like we have some, like we have a bucket around how can we use data more impactfully? Use what we have as evidence for the work, from understanding performance assessment to the accreditation data system. So I feel like data keeps coming up in multiple ways, and I'm sure we can also kind of use it to talk about the teacher pipeline and retention. So I feel like that's one category I hear. So I'm going to look to you guys to say yay or no, nay. And then we talked a bit about advancing the profession at large, to supporting the pipeline, to addressing high need areas. And so it's kind of advancing the profession as well as recruitment and retention. I feel like I heard that. I'm not sure I have that one captured. And I think different was focusing on the teacher development continuum from preparation through early career. And then of course, the high need for representation and diversity.
The other thing I would add, Monica, as you talk about the teacher pipeline, I think one of the points that was made by several of you was the idea of within that recruitment and retention, that we figure out a way to both partner and provide programs that are multiple on-ramps, right, to education, so that we're really digging into what communities need, and then figuring out how to tailor programs or resources to support recruitment that meet those needs specifically. And I don't know if I'm saying that well, but I think there was a comment about the fact that we need to think about outside of the box, right? About how do we get out the word and get more information in the hands of districts and others to get into that recruitment and retention.
Yeah, okay. What are so I feel like those are just a couple of buckets. So folks agree there's a big bucket around data. There's a big bucket around supporting high need for representation as well as specific subject areas. Do we want to make, and then the teacher development continuum. Right. But I feel like we still wanted to make a separate category that would address everything that we've talked about with regard to equity and social justice. So do folks have, kind of looking at Angel's notes, a bucket for that's beyond representation and inclusion?
I think something that Mary reminded me of is that when we talked earlier about why EDI was up at the top and didn't fall within a goal, that anything that happens, whatever the priorities and milestones are, until we have a clear definition and articulation of the role of the CTC in advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion, how do we do all of these things how do we accomplish all of these goals with a focus on EDI when we don't have a clear definition of what our role is?
Yeah.
So that's why it's up here.
I love
I
that.
believe, Mary, I might be wrong. That's why it's up here at the top, because it
Absolutely.
informs everything that we do. And without a clear definition, it would be really hard to do that.
Yeah, I think that's
Integrity.
a great bucket, defining a role for advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion, to lead with that. Yeah.
Anne Marie, that really helped me understand how that fits. And again, I don't want to call it a bucket, Monica, because that means it's over here by
It's like
itself.
the umbrella. It's like,
Yeah, a framework. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Good. Anything else that folks want to make sure we capture when we report out? Okay. And of course, depending on the order in which we report out,
Right.
you know, we can add on to some other thoughts that other groups will have, or, you know, we want to make sure we highlight those that are particularly different from our group's perspective. So, okay. Well, we're going to probably go here any second. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts. Otherwise, you can hit the little leave room button at the bottom and it'll take you back to the main room. So thank you. This was an awesome group. Appreciate it.